Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for the chance to speak on the motion I put forward to the full Council in May. And I would also like to thank colleagues from the Labour and Conservative Party who have shown support for it here today. I'm not going to seek to repeat the points that were made in the deputations earlier. The general case was made in the October IPCC report that we need to think differently and change how we're doing things versus today. There is one group I would like to pay tribute to that isn't here today, and that's the children and young people who've been campaigning across Hampshire demanding that we take stronger action. And I think it's important that we all pay tribute to the fact that I don't think we would necessarily be discussing this today if it wasn't for the energy and leadership shown by Hampshire's children and young people. It is a great opportunity that we now face. The government nationally has signed up for the country to be net zero carbon by 2050. We have new leadership of the County Council, not just with strong views on the environment, but a strong record on the environment. And as reported, as in the report, there is progress to build on. The Council has set targets before, and our officers have not just delivered against them, but have over-delivered against them. And of course, I'm delighted to hear that the leader is making a commitment both to the declaration of a climate emergency and to set forward a robust action plan. What I would like to see within that is addressing three opportunities. The first is greater urgency, the second is larger scale, and the third is wider scope. In terms of urgency, the deputations have made clear the urgency and scale of the challenge. It is an emergency, and the Cabinet will need to think whether the scale of what we're currently working on and the level of our current activity reflects the fact that it is an emergency. And just as the UK, as one of the most prosperous countries in the world, is the first to set a target for the country, Hampshire, as one of the most prosperous counties, must also take a lead. We also face unique challenges such as flooding and, compared to some areas, summer heat, where we will also need to take a lead. So it is vital that we don't just set a date for the Council to be carbon neutral, but also set a date for the county to be carbon neutral. We also need to think in terms of scale. So the days of percentage reductions are over unless that percentage is 100%. We have currently delivered more than 40% carbon reductions. We are targeting 50% by 2025. The question to Cabinet is, when do we get to 100, and how do we deliver a plan that gets us to 100? And the third area I'd like to highlight is scope. Now, the BLAP report attached to the motion talks very much in terms of our own assets, our own land, although it doesn't refer to agricultural land, our own buildings, our own vehicles, and our own lighting. But we need a plan that works more widely than that. To take an area I'm particularly interested in, energy, economy and transport, we need a low-carbon movement strategy for the county, strengthening and accelerating implementation of our walking and cycling strategy, and thinking more ambitiously about the role of low-carbon public transport. We need a renewable low-carbon energy strategy, looking at things that have been mentioned in the deputation, such as tidal and wind and district heating, and how we as a county can encourage those. We need to look at our role as a statutory consultee on all planning issues and how we can show leadership in that area. We need to review our economic strategy, looking at the opportunity for a carbon-free economy, new jobs, new companies, new partnerships with universities and the LEP and other such bodies in order to make it happen. We will also face challenges in adult and social care and health. The health and wellbeing strategy already recognises the role of climate change. It's a fact that Christmas is no longer the only challenging time for our hospitals. Historically, we've talked of excess winter deaths. Now we need to start talking about excess summer deaths as well, sadly. And the kind of adaptations we make to housing will no longer just be about the vital work of putting in new bathrooms and lifts, but may involve insulation, for example, as well. We also need to look at areas of legal responsibility. So we are legally responsible for waste disposal. So even if the organisations handling it themselves aren't actually part of the council, we need to take ownership of their carbon emissions and what we need to be done in that area. And then we need to take wider leadership. As was mentioned, our own emissions are only 0.5% of the emissions across the county. We have done similar things in the past with the Energy and Environment Futures Group, which was part of the previous Senate. But we need carbon to be integrated into all strategies, reflected and considered and thought about in all portfolios. We need to be working with partners such as schools and district councils, but also tapping into the energies and skills of fellow citizens across the county as well. So I'm delighted that you have decided to support this motion and the principles behind this motion. What I'm asking for is that the climate emergency isn't a side project, but is moved to be at the absolute core of the Council's work. It needs to be much more than an intent. It needs to be an urgent, concrete plan that reflects the emergency that we face. So I'm delighted to hear that you will be supporting it, and my request is that it has real substance, sits at the heart of the county, and that Hampshire genuinely leads the change that we need across our county to tackle this emergency.